Mm. So brothers and sisters, this discussion right here is going to be related to reclaiming our legacies. So what I want to put out there is that there are certain things that I am versed in, that I stand on. And then there are always things that I am discovering, right? And in particular right now, as we're in these conversations, I am discovering something that I didn't know existed before. Primarily, the relationship between Gnosticism and Christianity, and then Gnosticism and the Men Fight Theology, right? That was something new for me, but it's kind of funny because I read this work that I'm going to discuss tonight and that I'm going to go over long time ago, right? So long, it was a foundational book of mine. I read it so long ago that I don't remember everything I read in it. And so I found myself on Sonetta TV, right? Thinking that I'm presenting something new. It was only new for me. You understand? It was only new because I was making these connections, because I have access, like all of us, we have access to this wealth of information that's out here on the internet. And so now I'm able to make, connections that my ancestors, had to struggle for, had to really, really work hard to get. And so really what I'm gonna do is give honor to an ancestor who did this work before me and who did this work more diligently, who did this work more thoroughly, who talked about this discussion before I was even a thought in my great-grandfather's mind. You understand? So and what we're gonna discuss tonight is Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, right? Right, foundational book for anybody in the conscious community, so to speak, conscious community, that's really striving to understand what is this thing that we're under, right? As I'm doing my research and going through what I'm going through, you know what I'm saying? This came up, and I feel that if I'm going to be, totally intellectually honest, I need to give props where props, are deserved, because we are doing nothing but following up on the backs of our ancestors when we walk in our truth, because the truth that we walk in, our ancestors walked that same walk. Our ancestors talked that same talk. Our ancestors dealt with the same issues that we are dealing with today, which is evident with this fake Black Lives Matter movement that went down, with the fake In Fact movement that went down. We are still striving to overcome some of the same issues that we were striving to overcome, 100 years ago, 120 years ago, 160 years ago, so on and so forth, right? This is our continuing struggle, because we are in the Heru phase of, establishing our legacy, creating our legacy, establishing our legacy, and maintaining our legacy. So giving props and respect to the ancestors that did the work before me, I'm not going to present to you some information as if though it's new and that I am the originator of the information. Everything that I come across, for the most part, there are some discoveries that I have made that not many have made prior to me, are some connections and patterns that I've been able to see that not a lot have been able to see before me, or if they have, they haven't made it vocal. But understand, nothing is new under the sun. That is a very wise saying. And our ancestors have done what we are doing, and it is for us to continue and move that work that they are doing further along. So give me one moment. Let me get everything set up. Let me take care of something. I got to dip for just 1 second. I'm gonna be right back. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So, let me go ahead and share my screen and then do this for you right now. Right, I hope you can see this. Let me see that. Thumbs up if you can see my screen, or if I need to enlarge it. I put a 1 in the chat or do something. I see somebody already thumbed up the video. Appreciate you. So we're gonna go with this like this. And so we're gonna deal with Stolen Legacy, the book Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, chapter 8, the Men Fight Theology, right? So I'm just gonna go through this and we're just gonna read it, so you can understand that when I made that connection, that Jesus Christ is the Logos and the Logos is the who of Ptah, I was not the first. I am simply doing what my ancestors have done before me, right? So here we go. So, I already discussed about my presentation. I'm not the first. I stand on the backs of my ancestors. Like I said, I made this connection without knowing this connection exists. So toi entered for the strength to walk in the footsteps of my ancestors. Those of us that are seeking to reclaim the strong African heritage of our people and link us back to legacies that are great and have influenced the world since time immemorial, right? So here we go. The Men Fight Theology is an inscription on a stone that's now kept in the British Museum. It contains the theological, cosmological, and philosophical views of the Egyptians. It has already been referred to. This is he's talking about earlier in his Plato's treatment of Plato's doctrines, but it must be repeated here to show its full importance as the basis of the entire field of Greek philosophy. It's dated to 700 BC and bears the name of an Egyptian pharaoh who stated that he had copied an inscription of his ancestors. This statement is verified by language and typical arrangement of the text, and therefore assigns the original date of the Men Fight Theology to a very early period of Egyptian history, i.e. the time when the first dynasties had made their new capital at Memphis in the city of the god Ptah between 4000 and 3500 BC, right? That's in The Intellectual Adventure of Man by Frankfurt. So we're already establishing right here from the outset, right? Even though the Shabaka stone, which is what he's referring to, is dated to 700 BC, it is referring to an older legacy, right? The Shabaka stone is based upon an older foundational philosophy and theology of the Kemetic people. So it's not just at 700 BC, right? The primate of the gods, Ptah, conceived in his heart everything that exists by his utterance, and by his utterance created them all. He is the first to emerge from the primeval waters of noon in the form of a primeval hill. Closely following the hill, the god Atum also emerges from the waters and sits upon Ptah. There remain in the waters 4 pairs of male and female gods, what's called the Ogdon, right? In my research, in my upcoming videos, you're gonna hear that word a lot. You're gonna hear that word so much you might get sick of this word, because this word is fundamental to understanding the Kemetic connection to Gnosticism. This understanding of the divine 8 that exists within existence itself, right? And it has the following names: Nun Nunet, which is the primeval waters in the counter heaven; Hu and Huhet, the boundless and its opposite; Ku and Kuket, darkness and its opposite, and Amun and Amunet, the hidden and its opposite. All right, so follow me now, follow me. We've already, if you watched me earlier on Sonetta, you already saw that, I dealt with this, in a different way. Like, this is really kind of just like a book report. You know what I'm saying? This is just like a book report, me just showing you that I am not the first in our community to have made these connections, and that there is something here. Peace, peace, young king, light and love. Yeah, that there is something here. And then also, I want to also say, this information is given to you to have greater conversations, to inform you in your conversations as you move throughout your life. You know what I'm saying? Don't, I just want to just put that out there. It's not, nobody's up in any scholarship or none of that. That's not that. And when people say that, that's whack. People that brag about scholarship, that shit, that's the stupidest saying that I've heard. Not stupid, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Grow and expand your mind. That's just how it goes, period, point blank. You know what I'm saying? That's just it. No bragging about what you do. Do what you do and, do your talent. Don't brag about reading a book. That's silly. Like, whoever bragged about reading a book, you know what I'm saying? That's good that you read a book. Like, we are encouraging you to read a book. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the reason why we present the information to you, so that you can read a book, so that you can know what we're saying. Anyway, I'm just going off on that. I saw somebody talk about how they read a book and how they, big it up in scholarship. Scholarship is important, I see that, but it just is what it is. No need to brag about it. All right. Chapter 8, Ptah has the following attributes. He's the primate of the God of gods, the logos, thought and creative utterance and power, right? The God of order and form, the divine artificer and potter. It must be noted that while the sun god Atum sits upon Ptah, the primeval heel, he accomplishes the work of creation. But the Memphite theology dates back to 4000 BC, when it believes the Greeks were unknown. You know what this is the other thing, right? Ptah was the great craftsman. Ptah would be the builder. Ptah is a builder. Ptah is the great architect of the universe. Those that have ears to hear, let them hear. And I don't know, I'm wondering, you know what I'm saying? I'm wondering, because there's a lot of connections with that statement, the great architect. He's a craftsman, he's a carpenter. So that's something to be taken into consideration. All right. The arrangement of the Memphite theology could only mean that the ingredients of the primeval chaos contain 10 principles, 4 pairs of opposite principles together with 2 other gods. Ptah representing mind, thought, and creative utterance, while Atum joins himself to Ptah and acts as the demiurge and executes the work of creation. From such an arrangement in the cosmos, we are in a position to infer the following philosophies. Now, this was a diagram that I created to kind of give you a visual representation of what they were saying in the Memphite theology, right? Ptah emerged from Nun. These waters, I don't know if you can see my my cursor right here, but the waves at the top represent the waters of Nun, the waters of primeval creation. And then Ptah emerges from the waters of primeval creation with both his Hu and his Sia. Atum emerges and sits upon Ptah to enact the process of creation through the primordial gods, who are really representative of the 4 elements, or of elements of creation. Now, we can't say it's like fire, air, earth, and water, and so on and so forth, but there are 4 elements of creation with its opposite, its yin and its yang, right? So we see a deep philosophy already within this part of the Kemetic legacy here. Don't sleep on it, because cats want us to sleep on the legacy. Like I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Legacies, they're our connection to our ancestors, and our ancestors are our connection to the divine essence. This is all about understanding the divine essence. There are people out here that really just want us to forget who we are and then walk in this blind light. Like, we always stand up on the backs of our ancestors. This is actually why the Hebrew Israelite movement, is so strong, because they are saying that the Hebrews are their ancestors, and they're trying to walk upon the backs of their ancestors. Like, ancestral legacies are real. And this is our ancestral legacy. To forget about it is ridiculous. Clearly, there's something here that needs to be reclaimed. and we need to reclaim our stolen legacies. And then it's the spirituality of the world. Now, my particular focus is on the spirituality of the world, because when brothers and sisters engage in spiritual practices, a lot of times they're going to like gravitate towards this Indian stuff, which is beautiful. You know what I'm saying? You know, light and love, Brother King, appreciate you. Which is beautiful. You know, the Indian knowledge has, you know, a lot of stuff to it. But then it's interesting what I'm discovering as I read. If I make the connection that Gnosticism has its origins in Kemetic philosophy, and I'm gonna do a presentation on Eugnosis, which is a Kemetic, you know, philosophical book. You know, I'm seeing deep spiritual, you know, philosophies that are that I see resonance in the Upanishads. You know what I'm saying? So they're the only reason why we go and gravitate towards, you know, these Eastern philosophical teachings is because we don't know our own teachings. That's the crazy thing about it. This isn't about like becoming Kemites and all of that stuff. It's about acknowledging, you know, respect and where respect is due. You know what I'm saying? If we want to elevate our consciousness into the divine consciousness, many times we go and read the Bhagavad Gita, we'll read the Upanishads, we'll read the Rig Veda. Well, you know, we have all of these other stuff because our African brothers and sisters that are now on the continent, they're just now releasing their spiritual information because they kept it secret for so long, or was passed down through family lines, right? And so you don't have a whole wealth of information. And then this information that we do have, a lot of times it comes from, you know, what is this, archaeologists or anthropologists or people that study. So they're not speaking in the spiritual language as practitioners. So this is to show the brothers and sisters that are writing and trying to figure out, you know, what are the spiritual practices that are existing in the world as you break away. And then people calling this spookism. Man, look, this is about the reclamation of our African legacy. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of I was a part of the ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. And I'm still affiliated and associated to a degree, you know, for a long time. But one thing I noticed about ASCAC is they study Africa without actually dipping into Africa, right? Like to study Africa without understanding its spirituality is like saying, I'm going to study the ocean without ever going in. That's what it is. If you just want to read books on what people have done, you're not ever going to know what those people have done to make them great. You see, they engaged in certain spiritual practices, which gave them something within themselves. It elevated something within themselves that allowed them to do great things. This is what we are seeking to recover and reclaim. Now you want to study history on what people did, that's awesome and great as well, because we need to have a more thorough understanding of what went down. But reclaiming our spiritual legacies is paramount and tantamount to us reclaiming our greatness, because it was always our spiritual connection to our ancestors and our legacies that gave us our greatness. And so pay respect where respect is due. And at the moment where I'm at right now in my journey and my steps, my respect is due to George G.M. James and Stolen Legacy and the work that he put out before I ever was born and came up on the scene. Now, this is a picture right here of the Ogdode, right? The divine eight. This is a picture representing, you know, the universal energy of creation, the sunrise and sunset. Now, this is the Akhet, right? The glorious west here, right? Now, here's a picture of the, you know, the Ogdode right here. They're opposites. You know, Huhet, Kukuket, Amunet, oh man, I'm losing it already. That's really crazy. Amunet, Nunet, yeah, Huhet. So now, here's the following philosophies, right, that we can gauge. Let me try. Oh, I see. Where does law and also labor from being conquered start? You're gonna have to explain that more. I'll talk. I'll speak on it, but you kind of explain that. What do you mean law and labor from being conquered start? You know, you have to, you know, I don't understand the question. I'll speak on it if you expand upon that a bit more. So I'm gonna be watching the comments as I'm presenting. So, all right. So here are the following philosophies that you can gather from the Men Fight Theology. Water is the source of all things, right? Creation was accomplished by the unity of two creative principles, Ptah and Atum, the unity of mind with logos. Now he had Atum kind of confused here because Atum is representative of the light of the sun, so to speak, right? But Ptah had two creative principles, which is mind and logos, right? Atum was the demiurge, or intermediate God in creation. All right. Atum was the demiurge, or intermediate God in creation. He was also the sun god, or fire god. Opposite principles control the life of the universe. You know, opposing opposites are complementary principles. You know, I spoke earlier about the return to the African mother principle of male-female equality by Obiti Shaka, right? The understanding of the union of opposites to make balance, right? The elements in creation were fire, water, earth, and air, right? Part one of the Men Fight Theology is the correct source of these philosophies, but strangely, the Greeks have claimed them as their production, although without any right whatsoever. Now, I want to also remind you, I'm simply reading chapter 8 of Stolen Legacy. This thing reads almost word for word what I presented, right? Except, like I said, you know, the ancestor goes deeper. Individual Greek philosophers to whom portions of the philosophy of the Men Fight Theology has been assigned. Of these doctrines, water as the source of all things has been assigned to Theos. That of the boundless or unlimited has been assigned to Anaximander, right? Furthermore, the doctrine that fire underlines the life of the universe has been assigned not only to Pythagoras, who spoke of the functions of the central and peripheral fires, but also to Heraclitus, who spoke of the transmutation of fire into the other elements and their transmutation back to fire. All right, so spirituality, like I said earlier when I was speaking with Brother Reggie, when I said, you know, what we see in Kemet is African spirituality codified. You know, so that's what you have is what you have brothers and sisters who engaged in nature and discovered principles of conscious transformation. You know what I'm saying? Like the Native Americans discovering peyote, you know, has a specific property if used in a specific way, and then including it in their ceremonies in order to reach a different level of consciousness to give you a spiritual experience that you wouldn't have had otherwise, right? So then you have people who were able to commune with nature in such a way to win these secrets and bring them back to the people. Just like, prime example, you're gonna hear this all the time from me, George Washington Carver and him talking to plants, right? That is a straight up Nigerian kind of initiation ritual where when you become an Ifa priest in Nigeria, or one section of Nigeria, when I was on Clubhouse talking to an Ifa priestess, they said one part of their initiation is to teach you how to talk with plants. You know, I'm like, whoa, that's deep, but I can connect that because I'm understanding the African diaspora and the retention of African cultural elements. I can connect that back to what George Washington Carver was doing when he was talking with the plants and then gave us extreme uses for the peanut. You understand? So there's a direct cultural legacy and lineage that connects us to Africa. Now, how do we respond to that? How do we relate to that? That's an ever-growing, ongoing conversation that we need to explore, you know, but because it is there. You know, that's why people are fighting so hard against it, because they hate it, because, you understand, we have been programmed and conditioned to be against that because it connects us. Culture imbues us with power and strength. You understand? When we have a cultural home, we have a lot more pride with ourselves. When we have nothing, there is nothing. And you have, anyway, that to me, that's my answer to your question, brother. Like, you know, spirituality in and of itself is the discovery of principles of conscious physical transformation to enable to have your consciousness engage in realities and understandings of the universe that it wouldn't normally be engaged in. Like when I answered, I think it was Morpheus on Titans TV, and I told him about disciplining the mind, he brushed that off like it wasn't metaphysical. When you sit and discipline your body and your mind in meditation, is deeply metaphysical. I'm not going to talk about anything, number one, that I haven't experienced, and number two, that I cannot teach anybody else to experience if they apply it to themselves. You know, that's it. So, all right. All right. Also, Democritus, who spoke of fire atoms as filling. Lighten up, brother, lighten up. Also, Democritus, who spoke of fire atoms as filling spaces as the mind or soul of the world. And Plato, who spoke of a world soul, which is composed of fire atoms, right? Likewise, the doctrine of opposites has been assigned not only to Pythagoras, who spoke of the elements of the unit as odd and even, but also Heraclitus, who spoke of the unity of warring opposite. Parmenides, who spoke of the distinction between being and not being. Socrates, who spoke of things as being generated from their opposites, and Plato, who spoke of ideas and noumena, has real and perfect, but phenomena has unreal and imperfect, right? Furthermore, the doctrines of nous are an intelligent agency as responsible for creation has been assigned not only to Anaxagoras, but also to Socrates, who spoke of the existence of useful things as the work of an intelligence, to Plato, who spoke of a world soul or mind as the cause of life and knowledge in the universe, and to Democritus, who attached a similar meaning, right? These are all philosophers that came out of the Men Fight Theology, right? We got to give respect to our ancestors who created the Men Fight Theology. Why? Because we're still dealing with the Men Fight Theology to this day in a diluted, watered down form, right? The doctrine of the Logos has been assigned to Heraclitus, who spoke of fire as the Logos are creative principle in nature, while the doctrine of the Demiurge, our intermediate God who created the world, has been assigned to Plato, right? Now he's come down, the ancestor is coming off of stolen legacy and Greek philosophy, right? My connection is stolen legacy and Christian philosophy, right? And that Christian philosophy being connected through gnosis and the pre-Gnostic doctrines. The gods of order and arrangement in the cosmos are represented by 9 in one Godhead called the Ennead. Here, Atum, the source of the Ogdod, is also retained as the source of the gods of order and arrangement. Atum names 4 pairs of parts of his own body and thus creates 8 gods, who together with himself become 9. These 8 gods are the created gods, the first creatures of this world, and Atum, the creator god, the demiurge of whom Plato spoke. The gods who Atum projected from his body were Shu and Tefnut, we know that, Geb and Nut, who are said to have given birth to 4 of the gods, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nefertep, right? But they're also missing Heru. I think it's Heru, it's not Heru or Heru the Elder. Heru Imakhet, or something like, not Heru Imakhet. They're missing a form of Heru in here because they gave birth to 5 principles. Heru, there's a form of Heru that was in here. As we read the text of part 2, we find that the sun god Atum, who was present in the chaos, was also present at the development of orderly arrangement in the cosmos. At this stage, Atum assumes the role of creator of all gods except Ptah, the god of gods. He next proceeds to accomplish this special type of creation in the following manner. He commands the 8 gods to proceed from his own body according to the names of those 8 parts. Now, later on, I'm going to talk about gnosis, and we're going to talk about emanationist philosophy as being Kemetic philosophy, as being African philosophy, as being, a philosophy that's in and around the world. The result of this creation presents us with what has been called the Ennead, or the unity of 9 gods in one Godhead. The doctrine of the demiurge As in part one, the doctrine of the created gods and the doctrine of the unmoved mover, also the doctrine of opposites and omnipotence and omniscience. Of these doctrines, that of the Ennead will be dealt with elsewhere. And since the doctrine of the demiurge has already been treated together with the created gods, I shall now discuss the doctrine of the unmoved mover as the basis upon the same act of creation. According to the Memphite theology of the Egyptians, Atum created 8 gods who proceeded from 8 parts of his own body. He was seated upon Ptah the heel and was unmoved. In this act of creation, Atum became the unmoved mover. In spite of the Memphite theology being the direct source of these doctrines, yet Plato has been given credit for the doctrine of the created gods, while Aristotle has received credit for that of the unmoved mover. Certainly, the world has never been more misled. Remember, George G.M. James is writing, Stolen Legacy to talk about Greek philosophy being stolen Kemetic philosophy. My presentation was related to Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy, Christianity. Egypt, Greece, Rome, Christianity. For the next few presentations that I do, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm Spirit Walker, peace. I'm really going to focus on, trying to understand the influence that Gnosticism had on the development of Christianity, and then connecting Gnosticism to Kemetic spirituality. Light and love, Spirit Walker 10, light and love. Here it must be made quite clear that the doctrine of a demiurge in creation includes 2 other doctrines, that of the created gods and that of the unmoved mover. It was the function of the demiurge to create the universe, and in doing so, his first act was the creation of the gods, who accordingly became the first creatures. But the manner in which the demiurge created the gods was the process of projecting them from his own body. This method of creation clearly makes the demiurge the unmoved mover. However, the history of Greek philosophy has assigned the authorship of the doctrines of the demiurge and the created gods to Plato, and the authorship of the doctrine of the unmoved mover to Aristotle. But this so-called Platonic doctrine is one made up of 3 inseparable parts: the demiurge, the function of the demiurge, and the method of the function, a unity which contradicts Aristotle's authorship of what is really only an interface from the supposed original doctrine of Plato. The doctrine of opposites has already been discussed. However, in part 1 of the Men Fight Theology, one of the pairs of gods, of created gods, Osiris and Isis, was used to represent the male and female principles of nature. In addition to this, Osiris had other qualities attached to him, which might be understood from the following derivatives. Now, I'm kind of like, I'll be honest. When I looked at his kind of breakdown of it, I was like, I don't really think this is the deal. Could be, could not be. I don't think so though, but I'm gonna go through it anyway. Osh meaning many, and iri meaning to do, and also meaning an eye. Consequently, Osiris came to mean not only many-eyed and omniscient, but also omnipotent and all-powerful. Here again, as in all instances already mentioned, in spite of the fact that the Memphite theology is the source of Greek philosophy, yet the doctrines of an intelligent cause and nous, as responsible for the life and conduct of the world, has been assigned to Anaxagoras, Socrates, and also Plato, whose world soul consisted of fire atoms, like the world soul of Democritus. In this third part of the Memphite theology, the primate of the gods is represented as Ptah, thought, logos, and creative power, which are exercised over all creatures. He transmits power and spirit to all gods and controls the lives of all things, animals, and men through his thought and commands. In other words, it is in him that all things live, move, and have their eternal being. All right, we can infer the following doctrines. A, all things were created by thought and the command of Ptah, the gods of gods. B, through the thought and command of Ptah, we all live and move and have our eternal being. C, Ptah is the creator and preserver, has already been pointed out elsewhere. Ptah's powers were transmitted by magical means to Atum, who performed the work of creation. All right. So I really kind of, well, we'll go into this saying the Men Fight Theology is the source of scientific knowledge. I don't know. I can't really kind of co-sign on that. You know, but I'm gonna read it to you anyway because it's still part of the chapter. But you know, this is kind of where people say like, oh, did the Kemites know nuclear physics? I don't know. I don't think so. You know what I'm saying? We don't have any evidence saying they knew nuclear physics. We do have evidence saying that they knew science. That's what we do have, but we don't have evidence saying they knew nuclear physics. And I'm not going to be one to promote that, you know. But we do have evidence of them having deep spiritual, you know, practices that allowed them to win secrets from nature. That's what I'm going to talk about. Nuclear physics, I don't know. But here's what he said, George Jim James, the ancestor. Just as the Men Fight theology is the source of Greek philosophy, or primitive science, so it is also the basis of modern scientific belief. The gods of order and arrangement in the cosmos are represented by 9 gods in the godhead called the Ennead. Atum, the sun god, the fire god, creates 8 other gods by naming 4 pairs of parts of his own body from which they came forth. Here the names of the created gods were given as Shu, Tefnut, Geb, and Nut, and 2 other pairs of opposites, Osiris, Seth, and Nephthys. Isis, Asar, Set, and Heteru, who are supposed to be the first creatures of this world. Now, if we compare this Egyptian cosmology with the nebular hypothesis of Laplace, we would find very striking similarities in 2 contexts. According to the nebular hypothesis, our present solar system was once a molten gaseous nebula. This nebula rotated at an enormous speed, and as the mass cooled down, it also contracted and developed greater speed. The result was a bulging at the equator and a gradual breaking off of gaseous rings which formed themselves into planets. These planets in turn threw off gaseous rings which formed themselves into smaller bodies, until at last the sun was left as the remnant of the original parent nebula. From this context, it is clear that the original parent nebula was fire or the sun, and that the going off of parts of itself, it created some planets, which in turn threw off parts of themselves and created others. According to the context of the Men Fight theology, the creator god was the sun god or fire god Atum, who named 4 pairs of his own body which gods came forth. I gotta admit, that sounds like emanationist philosophy. That sounds like emanationist philosophy for sure. You know, no doubt. All right, but Atum, together with the 8 created God, composed the Ennead, a godhead of 9. Very striking similarity with modern science, which teaches that there are 9 major planets. We may now surmise these similarities. The creator God in both the Egyptian and modern cosmologies is the sun or fire. The creator God in both cosmologies creates gods from parts of himself. The number of gods are 9 and correspond with the 9. Yeah, he did a good job at making the connections. These similarities make it evident that Laplace obtained his hypothesis from the Men Fight theology or other Egyptian sources. All right, so Garfield might be on a roll with that one. You know what I'm saying? Could be whatever. We see the similarities though. The nebula spinning, a portion of it breaks off. The whole, the noon, you know, rotating, existing, has existence itself. A portion of existence, Ptah, breaks off. A portion of Ptah breaks off and then spins off other portions. We have emanationist philosophy. And all of that emanationist philosophy still says this: you are part of the divine essence. You are part of that original emanation. You are just a smaller part of the emanation itself. From the nebular hypothesis to the Men Fight theology, you are still God, a portion of the divine essence, walking, trying to understand the connection trying to be made in this universe, and the contribution you are going to make to the creation that we have now, here and now. Of course, the Men Fight theology, according to Frankfurt and his Intellectual Adventure of Ancient Man, does not mention the creation of planets. Nevertheless, since it was the method of Egyptian to conceal truth by the use of myth, parables, magical principles, number philosophy, and hieroglyphics, we can easily see what methods might be involved before we could arrive at a better translation of the Men Fight Theology. So he's just going off of what he's going off. At any rate, the entire setting of the Men Fight Theology is astronomical, what could be more natural than to expect an astronomical interpretation. It seems well within reason to regard the Ennead as the heliocentric system of history, Atum, the sun god, creating 8 other gods or planets from his own body, as the unmoved mover, a teaching which has been falsely attributed to Aristotle. All right, the identity between the Egyptian sun god Atum and the atom of modern science, and the atom of modern science. There are 2 things which I desire to point out in connection with the relationship between Atum, the Egyptian sun god, and Atum, and the atom of modern science. These things are the similarities of attributes and the similarity of names. The Egyptian god Atum means self-created, everything and nothing, a combination of positive and negative principles, all-inclusiveness and emptiness, a demiurge possessing creative powers, the creator's son, right? Atum also means the all and not yet being. As a god, Atum represents the principles of opposites. The atom, as the substratum of matter, according to Greek philosophy, is defined by Democritus as movement of that which is to within that which is not, tuon, thumion. It therefore represents the principle of opposites and shows the identity between the Egyptian sun god and the substratum of matter. Furthermore, the atom is defined as the full and void, being and not being. And these definitions coincide with the everything and nothing and the all-inclusiveness and emptiness of the Egyptian sun god. That's the noon as well, brothers and sisters. Now, with reference to the similarity of these 2 names, the first thing we should bear in mind is the fact that they both possess identical attributes, as has been already pointed out in section 1. And consequently, we are compelled to conclude that the atom of science is the identical name of the Egyptian sun god, the most ancient of gods except Ptah, who was present with Atum at creation. The second thing we should bear in mind is the fact that the name of the god Atum belongs to the cosmology of the Men Fight Theology, whose date goes back to 4000 BC when the Greeks were not even known. Consequently, we are compelled to conclude that the Greeks obtained both the original name and the attribute of the sun god Atum from the Egyptians. Furthermore, the Greeks were unacquainted. All right, so this goes on and on. I think I have made my point here, and I've done my ancestor, proud. You know what I'm saying? Which is the goal. I'll be doing more presentations, more discussions on different aspects, and we'll be coming on some other information pretty soon. I was just catching Zion Lex's presentation, and he was talking about what was he saying? He was talking about the Hebrew New Testament, and then so I'm gonna go ahead and do some research on that, and then we'll go ahead and engage in that conversation because I'm gonna peace, like brother, appreciate that. So this is what my thesis is. This is what my thought pattern is. This is what I am exploring as a research topic. Gnosticism was the start of Christianity. Christianity was a Gnostic Judaic sect, right? If Christianity was a Gnostic Judaic sect, I can find the Gnosticism in the New Testament, which I'm going to present on pretty soon, talking about the Gnostic elements in the Gospel of John. Go ahead and look that up yourself and see that. It's like I said, nothing new under the sun. And then I'm going to present that. But if information changes when I read the Hebrew version of the New Testament, then something's wrong, or I have to do some more. I got to restructure my understanding, right? But so far, I picked up a book go ahead and get on Scribe and just type in the Hebrew New Testament. There's this book by hold up, I got it on my phone right now. Hold up, let me go ahead and tell you what it is. What is this book called? The Original Aramaic New Testament in Plain English, translated by someone called Reverend Glenn David Balsher. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if you can see that. It looks kind of whack. Nope, can't see it. All right, but go ahead and peep that, you know, and that'll give you something. But from what I already read in that, you know, when it was talking about, it says 95% of what's found in the Greek New Testament is similar to what's found in the Aramaic New Testament, right? They're saying Aramaic was the original form that the New Testament was written in, right? But he said the difference is like in Mark 14, verses 61 through 64, like, but Yeshua said to him, verse 62, but Yeshua said to him, I am the living God, and you shall behold the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. So he outlined and put in bold the statement, I am the living God. Let's see what the Greek New Testament says. Greek New Testament of Mark 14. Mark 14, verses 61 through 64. All right, hold up. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Pull this out. Let's explore this part right here. Stop this share, boom. Back in the mix. And then do this share. All right, but so now in verse 62 in the Aramaic, it said, I am the living God, and you shall behold the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Here it says, but he was silent and did not answer. Again, the high priest asked him, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? Oh, snap. Man, yo, the Blessed One. That, wow, I gotta write that down. Hold on. See, what is it? What is the Greek one? Son of the Blessed One. Oh man, yo, Jesus, man. See, I'm gonna have to pull it up for you all. The Blessed One. See, these are terms. Man, I'm gonna have to do another presentation. That Blessed One is a term. That is a specific Gnostic term. Anyway, here he says, I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand power and coming on the clouds of heaven, right? So that's, let me see here. That's the New Standard Version. Let me see. We want to see Greek though. I always try to get it in Greek. Maybe I went to the wrong joint. Let me go to Bible Hub. Bible Hub is the best. Bible Hub is the best. Questioning him and says to him, you are the Christ, the Son of the Blessed. Ooh, it said the Blessed One. Oh man, yo, man, wait, what is this? Mark 14, 61 through 64. Yo, I'm gonna let you all know right now, like, understanding the Gnostic connection of Christianity, that's something there. All right. He says here, and Jesus said, I am, and you will see the Son of Man at the right hand sitting of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. So, yeah, there's something different there. You know what I'm saying? I am the living God is very different. Now, but I have to at the same time now, I don't feel like it's fair for me to just show you all that and then not show you what I'm looking at. So let me show you, if I can show you what I'm looking at. Hold up, what am I looking at? Hold on one second. All right, come on. All right, let me stop this share right here. And then let me go ahead and share my screen again. All right, so this is what I'm looking at, right? Just go to Scribe, check it out. The original Aramaic New Testament in plain English, right? I was at the introduction. I was in my car driving home when I read this, right? But see, he's saying here, this is what he says. Let me give an example. But he was silent and he did not answer him anything. And again, the high priest asked him and said, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? But Yeshua said to him, I am the living God, and you shall behold the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Like, and then he goes on here talking about, I am the living God. The Blessed One? Oh, yo, when I give my presentation on, Gnosis, yo, you're gonna see the similarities. Like, there is something to words being used. Don't let these cats fool you. There is something to the words that are being used, right? Anyway, yo, y'all stuck with me through this whole presentation. Light and love, truth, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. May it guide your way. I hope you appreciated this. Also, I got a few new subscribers recently, so I just wanted to thank you for coming on. Support the work. You know what I'm saying? I hope you expand the conversation because it's all about research. You know what I'm saying? So peace and blessings, light and love.